that is a topic I have brought up numerous times, and the effect to the aquifer. Because some projects, because solar goes with many different things, data, battery storage, all of those have a component that they use water. And so how does that affect draining aquifers? So I just wanted to bring those points to your attention. I'll give you further updates as we have more meetings. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Binder. Ms. Kupka.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had one item. I had heard over the weekend some complaints from citizens regarding the odor of bleach in some neighborhoods that our system serves, and I'd appreciate it if the interim general manager would address it in his report later in the meeting. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Cleveland.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I have a few comments that I had provided to Mr. Miller today about the last two meetings that I was not able to attend. And he had suggested that we give you a copy of the email. So I just want to talk through those with you today. It was to my understanding the last meeting that there was going to be the contracts for the service authority presented tonight, and I didn't see that on the agenda, so I was asking him about that. And to my understanding, he's going to be addressing this in his comments for the manager report. In reference to the new position that was discussed at the last meeting, at this moment, I will say that I am not supportive of adding that new position. I feel like the service authority already has the position that was talked through, and that would be the position of the general manager. I feel like the interim general manager has been in place for 1 full year, and if we don't make decisions about the future, then we're going to be in the same position as we are right now a year from now. And we had been in a place where we were talking about the merger for a few weeks, and then it sounded like things went silent. Last week, it was brought up that we wanted to put the merger on hold, or it was suggested that the merger be placed on hold because of the grant not being able to be given if we were to merge with the county. And so this also brought up another concern that I had, that things weren't vetted all the way as it relates to the merger. And I will tell you that I, at this moment, could not fully support that idea. And I feel like we still need to explore a lot more information about a merger with the county before we were to move forward. And specifically, I'm asking for a business plan that can outline how the service authority could be more efficient, maybe even financially more efficient, with the county managing it and it being a county utility. I want to understand the reason why the previous board made the decision to have the service authority as a service authority versus having a county utility, the good and the bad reason why they made that decision. Obviously, this board may think that it was a bad decision to do that. I just want to understand the reason for it and what we've learned since then, so that way we can make the right decision of putting it back into a county utility. Furthermore, one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot, I wanted to make sure that the board knew that I felt this way, was that we have currently a county administrator serving as the interim general manager as we're making this really important decision. And nothing against Mr. Miller, because he's done a great job and has been supportive of the board as we have navigated through this past year. But I do feel like it has been an influence, and I feel like we need to have somebody that does not have influence over the county and that could serve as a subject matter expert for us to really understand the financial benefits or the negative financial consequences that we could face as a county and as a service authority merging with the county. When you're looking at the financials, we raised the rates according to the 5-year plan that Davenport set for us in the financial plan. And I do think that the board should consider having this reevaluated, because especially with what could be coming down for different fees from penalties that we may be facing, I do think that looking at it 5 years out from our 5-year plan might be something for us to look at now. Furthermore, I just want to let the board know that I did write Mr. Miller about trees down on Service Authority property and Potomac Landing. I guess it had happened after a recent storm. Contacted Mr. Miller, and he had sent somebody out there to get that fixed, and we're really thankful for that. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Bender or Ms. Kupka, could either one of you give a brief history as to why they chose to create the Service Authority?
Well, the Service Authority was created in 1992, and at the time there were several failing systems, and they felt it was in the best interest with also the state believing that also for the county to take on these systems and bring them together as one unit, because there was quite a few failing systems. One of them was the Presidential Lakes system. And originally was set up to be in the charter. All of the supervisors were on the board, including and up until I think Mr. Chris Thomas, when he came on, the county administrator was the general manager of the Service Authority. And until Ms. Bravo, I think it was Ms. Bravo appointed Mr. Mr. Worley, there were only the Board of Supervisors on the Service Authority. So only recently in the last 5 to 6 years has there been that, citizens on the board. It's always been the Board of Supervisors. And in my recollection of sitting in the audience a couple of times, you didn't even know what was happening in a Service Authority meeting. It was very quick, and then they went on to the supervisor board.
May I add something, Mr. Chair? So
Yes.
this, I would just say, if you're looking for some public information, the Project 94 blog back in 2018, 2019, when many issues came to light with regard to the management of the Service Authority, the Project 94 blog did do a deep dive into the history of the Service Authority. There's at least a six-part series or something if you check out their blog. And there are links to the sources and some factual information in there too that's also very helpful. I know when I was about to come on the board, I read back through all that stuff just to have some idea as to how we got where we were. Thanks very much.
Is that, Ms. Cleveland, is that an answer?
Well, okay, so the reason why the county decided to put the Service Authority from the county to the Service Authority is because of failing systems. Is that what I'm understanding?
Initially, these were private failing systems. This was back in 1992, way before any of us were here.
But this is what this is what I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand why this county, this board sat down and said, I think that we need to separate this from the county. Why did they make that decision? That's what I think is important for us to understand.
But it was never part of the county. It was a private water systems, and then it became the Service Authority in 1992. They were private water systems. It was the Fairview, what was it called? The Fairview Beach. Yes, Sytner was one of them. There was the Fairview Beach Sanitary District, and there was did I get that right? The Dahlgren Sanitary District. And they were all independent entities that were brought together under the Service Authority.
Mr. Chair, can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
It sounds like there's a lot more that we could discuss with regard to this question. So perhaps we could schedule a work session where staff does a thorough presentation regarding the records they have on the history of the Service Authority, and then have a much fuller discussion, since this is not on the agenda for this evening.
And I'm
But
willing
it does certainly merit further discussion.
Yeah, I agree. I just thought, since this question came up, we could get some of the history, because a lot of folks do not know the basic underlying history, but we can definitely delve into this further. Mr. Miller?
I would also like to add, if I may, to what Ms. Kupka is asking. We will provide you kind of a financial overview of of the reasons too, because it's typically organizations create authorities because of the need to have a separate um, debt obligations. And that's most likely, again, we would have to have some research, but that's probably one of the reasons why it was set up as an authority as opposed to it coming under the county, is because at the time, the county didn't want to grab onto that debt that was associated with those systems. And a separate authority would have its own responsibilities and it would not impact the counties. But we will do kind of an overview and do the historical overview for the next meeting. We can try to get you some information.
Yeah, that would be helpful because it's not really about the history. It's about the reasons why they made that choice. There has to be a reason why. And so financially, what's the reason why? And financially, was that reason valid or was it not valid, right? And so that's all I just still don't understand that piece of it.
Okay. Mr. Parker, do you have anything?
Nothing to add, sir.
Thank you. I received correspondence from resident in Fairview Beach thanking us for our efforts in correcting her, or helping correct the sewage problem at her house. And she had kind words to say to everybody involved. So to the staff, thank you for your efforts on that project. And Mr. Miller, for your efforts. And that wraps it up for that. Okay, moving on, consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Parker? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Report from the county attorney, Ms. Lackey. This is something reference Hop Yard deed?
Yes, but before we get to that, did Mr. Parker give his reason for electronic attendance on the record, just so we clarify that aspect? Did Mr. Parker state the reason for his need for electronic participation tonight? Okay, so medical reason, just we'll have to state in the minutes
Okay,
that it was a medical reason and no further explanation is needed, other than he does need to give just a general idea of where he is at. So if he's able to, is it just a private residence in King George or something along those lines is sufficient?
I only
Or
heard,
is he home? He's at his home address.
I don't know if he's at his home or his work place of employment. Mr. Parker?
Yeah, I'm in a private office.
Okay, great. We'll just have the minutes reflect that he's participating from home for medical reasons. Yes, the one item I do have for my report in your agenda package, there's a proposed deed of dedication for section 9 of Hop Yard. So if it's the will of the board, that would be proposed for execution and acceptance by the chair. And I did also note, I sent an email to the board members. The agenda version has one little minor omission. Well, not minor in the scheme of things, but minor that it's easily correctable. The notary block didn't have the date for the commissioning of the notary for the final signature that was provided, but the hard copy that was submitted does include the date, which is a 2022 date.
Okay,
I'll move to direct the county attorney to execute the deed of subdivision dedication, vacation, and easement for Hop Your Farms as presented.
Second.
motion's been made and second. Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Ms. Minder?
Aye.
Ms. Kupka?
Aye.
Ms. Cleveland?
Aye.
Mr. Parker?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion carries. Okay. Reports and presentation, Ms. Hahn. There you are.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Um, It wasn't included in your packet, but I believe everyone has a hard copy and it was emailed to you as well. This is the financial report for the end of May. It normally would have been at the first meeting of the month, but because we only had one meeting this month, I'm presenting tonight. So for the month of May, we had revenues in the total amount of $75,756 for a year-to-date total of $7,268,075. And on the expenses, we had $497,489 for the month of May, with a year-to-date of $5,385,203. Normally June, you'll see a lot of things getting wrapped up for the end of the year, but a June report will not be available until after the final audit, which we've got scheduled for early October this year.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Thank you, Ms. Hahn.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, Maintenance Division.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, and members of the board. Just got a couple things we'll update about June, a few things that we're doing. We're still wrapping up FEMA stuff for the January storm. Been getting a lot of information for FEMA. They've had us go back 6 times now for information for generators, times, models, KWs. We've spent a lot of time getting this stuff together. But I think we finally about got it wrapped up. In the month of June, we responded 11 times to school board, sheriff's office, general properties for help, electrical help, sewer backups. We've been trying to help out everybody. It's 11 calls for service from them, different agencies in the county so far in June. We've had Bosch items at Perkins Corner we've been working on. We have almost all those wrapped up. We have safety training that's coming up next week for confined space, lockout, tagout, TPE, and HAZCOM. That's for everybody in the service authority. So we'll all be certified at the end of next week. We've been last week we helped down drawdown test for the decommissioning for Perkins and Oakland. Went through all the pump stations that are going to be reversed towards Hop Yard. They did a 2-day test and just basically helped out the engineers with those testings, times, and flows. We're also starting tomorrow with the I&I testing. We'll be helping them do the inspections starting in the Dahlgren area, all the inspections of manholes and piping. We've done some retrofits at Monmouth and at 10th Street. And also at Inaugural, we've been upgrading those. Inaugural's been a 4-year problem with backups. We probably spent in the neighborhood of 600 man hours in the last 4 years. In the summertime, because it backs up, we have to use the pump truck and clean it out. We've retrofitted that. We've not had one problem this summer, not one. We're working on Burger King pump station upgrades for DEQ. On the last step of the easement with Dominion, which requires a signature. Been working on that for months, back and forth with the property owner and the tenant, which is our last step to get the first step going to getting power there. So the easement will finally be signed and we can actually get started. We have all the material ordered, but with supply chain issues, we're not even looking to get some of the items till next year. So generators are almost a year out right now. So hard to get parts. We've had a pinch valve go down at Dahlgren, which is our main feed back to the ditch from the clarifiers. That was an emergency fix with Bay Country. We had to actually cut it out. Those valves are not available. They're year lead time. We had to actually retrofit it for a manual valve. We got that done and we're back and working. Dahlgren also has a nitrate recycle issue right now where we're supposed to be returning 3 times the nitrates to the outside of the ditch. That's what we're bringing in, and it's not doing anything right now. It's been modified in the past, and we're basically reverse engineering it, trying to get back to where it was. We don't know why the modifications were ever made. So we're working with Bowden and Mike Whitman to try and get it back doing what it's supposed to be doing. We're manually pumping it right now. So it's going to take a little bit to figure out why they did what they did, but it's not working currently, but we will get that going. One of the storms in June knocked out our plant pump station at Hop Yard, knocked out the controls. Again, with supply chains, we cannot get the controls for it. We basically had to build a a float system in the middle of the night during the storm to operate that plant pump station to keep inflow going in there, which was 3 hours of fun in the thunder and lightning. It basically with parts off the truck. We built a whole control system to make that work. We're looking forward to our next storm that may be coming. We're retrofitting our portable generator so it can be used at all of our sites without rewiring. So basically be just a pull it up, hook it up, flip the switch, and we're good to go. We don't want to have the issues we had last time. Month of June, we did over 400 locates. That was kind of low, actually. Usually it's somewhere around 500 to 700. So kind of a slack month for that, but it does take quite a bit of time to do all those locates. Of course, month of June was meter reads, obviously shutoffs. We had 150 some shutoffs, and that's about it for the month. If you have any questions, I can answer.
Any questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Walnut Hill, who's,
I'll handle that. So as you know, the Walnut Hill was a development that several years back, the developer did a number of infrastructure improvements that were part of the a rebate plan with the service authority. The developer has initiated a kind of a retooling of their development. They're changing it to add more townhomes. And if you're familiar with where Walnut Hill is, I know some people may be, but for the sake of others, it's there at just off of Owens and Dahlgren Road, and there's one house there that's kind of like a model, and it doesn't have like a CO. No one lives there. I think it's meant to be a model. It has been some time since they've been doing some things, and so they are active again. There is a current agreement that stands with the service authority. However, it's most likely going to require some kind of a modification or some kind of a amendment. So we'll be working with the developer. It is very likely that it would come back to you either in the form of a new agreement or in the form of an amendment to that agreement. So just to let you know where we stand on that. And that is again, they're changing the use, they're changing the density. So there's some other things that are involved. It's a very complicated development in the sense of what needs to take place. But from the service authority standpoint, this the actual water and sewer service and the infrastructure that's there is all part of that agreement that will have to be relooked at. So just to let you know. I'll take the next one, and this one answers one of Miss Cleveland's questions, and that is the wastewater operator request for qualification. So, yes, absolutely, it's absent from the agenda. We thought that we would be in a position to probably have this ready to go, but we have two operator proposals that have been provided to us, but in the words of Ms. Hahn, it's like comparing apples to oranges. So we are working with both proposals, both companies to be making sure that the proposals are uniform, so that we can get a good, accurate price quote for what they would do for us. And so that's where we are. We have asked one of the proposals or one of the companies to get their proposal back to us at the end of next week. And, I'm hopeful that we would have it for the August 3rd meeting, or excuse me, the August 2nd meeting. But if not, then, we would have it for the 16th. We obviously will, after next Friday, we will begin negotiations, if you will, with one company, and see where we can get with that. But you know, we feel very good about what we received, but I think that the best thing is that the key is that whatever this looks like at the end of it, it's got to be to the advantage of the service authority. It's got to be at a price that that the service authority can accommodate. It's got to be the service level has to increase and things like that. And that's what we're trying to work through. So that hopefully that answers your question. The other item on there is project updates, and I just, you know, I could do this myself as part of my general manager's report, but I thought that it would be nice to have Mr. Young, our principal engineer, give you an update. And I know in some respects, Mr. Eisenbeis kind of referred to a couple of the things that that Mr. Young is going to talk about, but we have a number of projects that are going on right now that Bryce is kind of handling, administering for us. And so I'll let him go ahead and give you an update.
Right, thank you, Mr. Miller. To begin with, our INI is actually really getting a good start tomorrow. We have somebody coming in to do a thorough inspection of all the Dahlgren manholes. This will give us a general roadmap as to how we want to proceed with decreasing INI in that system. The Perkins Corner decommissioning, we are in the process of scoping out different routes. We actually sent out letters to communicate with landowners that might be adjacent to where these lines will be possibly going, and we're trying to figure out the best possible route to run these lines connecting the courthouse system and the hop yard system. We are also working on the preliminary alignments for the connections for the courthouse and circle system, as well as courthouse and Canterbury system. And lastly, one other project.
I think we were going to talk about just let them know what the status is with the master plan, the water business plan.
Yes, I am currently working on the water business plan. Been working with VDH on that. Excuse me. Working with VDH on that to provide a good, solid business plan for the service authority to reference and to document what we're doing and how we're doing it. And this will help us in receiving some funds. Any questions? Anything?
Thank you, Mr. Young.
You.
Okay. Any discussion items? Mr. Miller, your report.
Okay, let me, I guess, a couple things first before the what's on the screen, but cutoffs, and I think Mr. Eisenbeis referred to those as well. There were 157 customers that were disconnected for non-payment. And Ms. Norris Barker works very diligently with these folks to try to get them to, you know, get on a payment plan or do whatever they need to do. And so this is something that obviously no one likes to have to do, but it has to happen sometimes. And we just also issued 4,441 utility statements as of last week. So those will be for the August timeframe. We'll start that process then. Okay, so let me, I guess, answer some of the questions that Ms. Cleveland had asked. So I answered the RFQ status. Again, the question on the merger, as you alluded to, the board, you know, has we've kind of placed it on hold. As Mr. Morris has alluded to, we have to do that at this point because we are receiving $5 million this year of water resource funding from the Virginia Department of Health, and they told us essentially discussions of your merger need to basically be put on hold because it could affect the receipt of the grants, and we certainly don't want to delay that. I know that there were also discussions before we found that out that you all wanted to look into things like the water or the wastewater treatment operator situation before you address that whole merger concept. My role in this was certainly to shepherd it along. It's a decision of the board. It's a decision of both boards, the supervisors, as well as the Service Authority Board of Directors. And certainly I felt my role in this was to just provide the information and to provide the venue and the opportunity for this discussion to go forward. So I assume that it would come back at some point because I do believe that there is some discussion and there's some interest in continuing the discussion. But I think for the foreseeable future, it needs to not happen, and because of the impact that it could have to us receiving resources such as the water grant and then the wastewater grant, which I will talk about here in a second. Okay, so Ms. Kupka alluded to the water quality, taste, and smell, and I do have an email that I received from Jerry Goldman, who it should be at your desk, and it explains kind of the process. And Jerry's not able to be here, but essentially, I will read it. There are certain times of the year that the smell of sodium hypochlorite is more recognizable. The summer months, especially when it's hot and humid, can be very noticeable. And this is due in part to the operator having to increase the dosage to combat what's known as dissipation in the system. And then customers that live close to the well where it's been added will notice this more than customers who reside at the end of the line. This dosage is increased so that the customers at the end of the line will get properly disinfected water, as well as customers at the head of the line. As the temperatures decrease outside, we will start to adjust our chemical back to keep the aroma down also. It is important to note that we do not exceed our legal limits with sodium hypochlorite residual. And then, our goal is obviously good, clean water. And so there are those times when this happens. I know that Ms. Cleveland had said that it happened in Fairview Beach, and that was the result of like a kind of a sudden drop and a change in the temperatures from day to day. And it was like it went from like 40 or 30 up to like 60 the next day or vice versa. And so I think that also had an impact. So that is the answer. And I know that I believe Ms. Kupka had also provided some information on her Facebook page or, that kind of addressed this as well. And Patty or Ms. Norris Parker, is there anything that I'm missing on this or you might add and customers calling?
The only thing that I'd like to add is that we do have to maintain a certain residual at the end of the line, and these residuals are taken on a daily basis. So the operator does know that, he may have at the beginning of the line, there may be more chlorine, sodium hypochlorite, as opposed to the end of the line. Anything else?
Mr. Chair, may I just clarify something? I just want to make it clear. So I did not post anything on
okay, I'm
Facebook yet
sorry.
about this. I saw it on Facebook.
Okay.
But I have the answer now. So I feel
Okay.
like I know why and could then let people know. So thanks for finding the answer for us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
And just for the general public, if you've ever owned a swimming pool, maintaining it in this heat and humidity becomes a major challenge. And they're, constantly adjusting what they put in to keep the water safe. And it's no different than our water systems. And that this is a constant daily thing that that needs to be regulated and maintained to keep it safe for everybody. But it's like I said, if you've owned a pool, then you know that the headache, but this is a much larger scale.
Thank you. And I will say this, that if you ever have, um, you know, people that are in your service district that you're representing, or that are, you know, all fellow ratepayers and customers, if they ever have a question about it, they can call our offices, and our folks are very helpful in terms of getting them information. And we will, if there is something unusual, the water folks will go and check. They'll make sure that everything is fine. But, you know, we have certain standards that, you know, requirements that we have to meet. And if that's ever something that you're very concerned about, please let us know. And I mean, that's why they're there. Very good customer service, and they'll take care of getting you information, or at least trying to address the problem. There was one other question that Miss Cleveland asked, and I was going to answer that, and I got ahead of myself. The financial plan that you referenced, the 5-year plan that Davenport and Associates put together. We've already spoken with Mr. Laux with Davenport. He has indicated that the best thing that we could do is to come back in the fall, probably get a good, like Ms. Hahn indicated, once we get the final numbers for the year in October, probably after the audit, is a good time for us to revisit that whole plan. And is there a need to continue on the pace that we're doing? Is there a need to accelerate the pace? I think that in previous discussions where we had during the budget process, there was a pretty lengthy discussion that that Kyle had with one of the citizen representatives, I think Mr. Bush, about the whole idea of when the service authority needs to relook at its existing bond, bonded indebtedness, and when you would maybe redo some things, some refinancing and things like that. And I think that he feels that we're getting close, probably in the next year or so. So I think it would be instructive for the board to have Mr. Laux come back and provide an analysis, kind of like what he did last year, and give, let him hear some of your concerns. But I will give him some of that information as well. Okay, so the other items on there, the water grant update. So I believe you have, is that on the next slide, Mr. Dines? Should be an attachment for the projects that are covered under water grant. Okay, so this is what has been approved, and we will be working on under the project that we got, the funding, the grant funding, excuse me, that we got from VDH for $5 million. And you can see Arnold Corner 1, Circle and Courthouse interconnection, which was discussed by Bryce. Abandon the Circle Wells, Canterbury and Courthouse interconnection. That's also was mentioned by Bryce. And then the new Fairview Beach well, and then the Hop Yard and Courthouse interconnection. So those are the projects that are essentially making up the $5 million. And we are working with VDH. That agreement has been signed. They have a third-party engineer that will work as their go-between with us and them in terms of how the whole thing works. Essentially, as you remember, this is a reimbursement on a cost incurred basis. We will, as we start to accumulate costs, we'll be able to get reimbursement on a monthly basis as we go forward. That's how they'll do it. And so it's exciting. It's a really good opportunity for the service authority to get its water needs up to date. We all know that the pressure that VDH is putting on us and DEQ are putting on us is all about the getting off of groundwater. So these are all obviously groundwater, but it's all part of a plan to improve what we're doing with the groundwater right now. So, obviously going to surface water is something that's several years in the making, but this is what we'll be working on over the next several years. The next item on there was going back to my report. So the next item that I really just have to say we're thrilled. We learned that Michael Whitman has 4 years of service with us. No, could you go back? Which we're very proud of, Michael, but I'm actually much more, no, $16 million that is going to happen this fiscal year. We had thought it was going to be in the second quadrennium and biennium, second year, but it is in actually the first year. So there should be some language that I have attached, or maybe we need to pull that up. But it is $16 million, and there are a number of projects. What this will allow us to do, which is really important, I think. This is the language that was in the bill that was approved. It very definitely shows that of the $75 million in funds statewide, we got 16 million of it. So it's a great testament to the efforts of our legislative representatives and looking out for King George. I will say this, that of the 16 million, the primary majority of that money is going to be the funding for the decommissioning of the Perkins Corner wastewater treatment plant, and also we'll be able to now accelerate the Oakland Park wastewater treatment plant decommissioning. And then there are upgrades to the infrastructure at Dahlgren and Hop Yard. We also have money that we've set aside in this for the inflow and the infiltration in a big way. So we're very pleased that we got this funded this year, and we will be working with Draper Aden. I do have an email that Mr. Bill Randall, who's with Draper Aden, was able to track down kind of what the process is. And you will see that DEQ is going to be the recipient of the funds that then they turn over to us in the form of a grant. It's a 60 to 90 day process for them to develop an implementation plan. And then what will happen is we will get in contact with them, and they'll discuss the whole allocation process. Probably in the fall, we would start to begin the process of applying and identifying the projects in a much more specific manner. And then the funding would probably become available, according to this email, sometime after in the first of the year in 2023. Very exciting news. And I'm really proud of the Service Authority for this.
Mr. Chair, may I make a request? So I spoke to Senator Richard Stewart yesterday on the telephone, and I thanked him for going to bat for our community and our Service Authority, but I think it's important that we follow that up with a written letter of gratitude. So I would move to direct staff to draft a letter thanking Senator Richard Stewart for his support for the chairman's signature. I moved. Can I get a second? Thank you.
Okay, motion's been made, second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Parker?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think I had a couple other items, and then I'll be finished. Mr. Dines? Making you work over there. Okay, so the Service Authority Capital Improvement Plan and Schedule, a little different than the Board of Supervisors. We are, with the Board of Supervisors, the Planning Commission held its first meeting, the public hearing on the 12th the 12th, last Tuesday. And then what'll happen is the planning commission will rank the capital projects for the board of supervisors. The service authority is completely different, doesn't have to follow the same process. So I'm just asking, I would like to start developing that. I think we obviously are going to modify our capital improvement plan now that we have heard about the wastewater funding that we'll get and how the water grant will play out. So we'll have something, perhaps maybe we look at doing like a work session, late August, or even we could get into September. I'd like to get this plan approved before you and approved so that we can have these projects moving, because, having a half a year of capital improvement plans is a little difficult for the group to deal with. So it might involve a regular meeting, but it also could involve a work session if we need to. So I'll let you know, or you could, if you have some dates that just absolutely don't work for like a work session, just let me know. Employee anniversaries and new hires, I think we already revealed that. It's Michael Whitman, who is our lead operator for wastewater, is with us for 4 years and has done an incredible amount of hard work over the last several months, since January, essentially because of his being the lead staff for us with dealing with Imboden and dealing with all the DEQ issues, and he's just stepped up and done an absolutely great job for us. So I just want to commend him for that. And I think that's it.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Miller?
I do. So I have a question about the chlorine smell in the water. Do we know where most of the complaints are coming from?
No, I know now in your instance, it was Fairview Beach or Potomac Landing. I believe the ones that I received were some that were in Presidential Lakes and Dahlgren. So it just really depends. I don't know that there's any common thread there.
Okay. And I do understand that chlorine is needed in the water. I will tell you that I've personally experienced the chlorine smell in the water. I have never experienced a chlorine smell like that before, and I've lived in several other counties. So I am curious is if other counties are receiving complaints or if there could be something else that is happening. Particularly with Fairview Beach, Potomac Landing, I do know that the pipes are very old. So likely they're having to use more chlorine to make it so that the water is clean. And I appreciate the response, but at the same time, I again personally experienced the chlorine smell, and I think that we should do better.
Yeah, we can provide some information about the amounts that we have to, by law apply, and what we're doing as opposed to what the state standards are and the federal standards are. But yes, we'll definitely look into this.
Mr. Eisberg, I believe there's a log, right? And they have to record what the readings are and then how much they have to add to the system. So if we do have complaints, I think specific dates, times, and location would be beneficial. Then we can see that, oh, the level was this, that's why he had to add that, versus blanket statements, the water's stinky today. Well, if people could be a little bit more specific, I think it might help to see if it's a one-off or if it's a trend and a problem. So I put that out to the public. Please, if you have an issue, let us know. But again, be specific in your complaint. you know, like taking your car to mechanic and just saying it makes a noise. Well, a little hard to figure out where the noise is coming from, so more information is always better. Anybody have anything else? Mr. Miller, you're finished? Okay, and no questions from Mr. Miller? Okay. Eh, Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn to August 2nd, 2022 at 5:30 PM in the boardroom. I was looking at the wrong agenda.
Second.
Motion's been made in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Parker? And chair votes aye. We are adjourned until August 2nd, 2022 at 5:30 PM here in the boardroom.